Hi, my name is Jacob, and welcome to another Uncut section. So, in this particular segment, I want to speak about violence in South Africa, and especially the violence that our communities in South Africa are facing. So, and my remarks really comes after President Cyril Ramaphosa's response to Julius Malema in Parliament recently, where he responded to a legitimate concern of Malema by saying, "I fear Fokol." So many people have commented on this. So this is just my remarks on it, and I think what the president did in this particular instance is completely forget or didn't respond to the root causes of the violence and kind of Malema's concern, what Malema raised in Parliament. So what Malema was referring to is that communities like Cloete, Johannesburg, Soweto, all of those communities have lately seen a lot of killings. So a lot of people are killed, and it seems that this violence, to a certain extent, is nonsensical. It doesn't make sense. So how do we then stop or prevent these type of killings taking place in very poor neighborhoods? So the option or the solution that Julius came about was there needs to be more visible policing in these specific communities. To a certain extent, there needs to be more visible policing in these communities, and that specific point, and there I agree with Julius. There needs to be more visible policing in these communities. But I don't think that visible policing would really address the main cause or the root causes of the violence in these communities. So we have to ask ourselves, why is there so much violence in these communities? And I think if we can answer that questions, then we'll find ways of fixing it. So if those communities are also your most poorest communities, then we have to look at the type of violence that is taking place. We cannot only make sense from with this violence from a political type of way like Julius did. We also need to think about this violence in a psychological manner. So if you think about this violence in a psychological manner, then it is indications of structural violence. Structural violence that many of those citizens experience. And when you experience structural violence, like many of the scholars have indicated, that violence will manifest horizontally. So it will not manifest upwards towards the state, but horizontally in the community. So it means that violence will then go to murder, rape, and in all those cases. So if you want to read more about this specific phenomenon, you can read Fanon, but you can also read Bulhan's book. There's a brilliant explanation on this type of violence. But I don't want to get sidetracked. What I want to say to the president is that yes, you have indicated to Malema beforehand the measures that you guys have put in place to really up the visible policing and address some of the issues that Malema is raising. But the real solution to this specific problem is really our young people in these communities need jobs. They need opportunities and they need a future. Currently, the majority of these young people in these communities does not have a future. And that is the thing that Mr. Fokol needs to know, is that his kids might have a future. Those cabinet ministers' kids might have a future. But the majority of these young people in these communities do not have a future. Their future is exactly the future of those before them. They are trapped in these communities, they are trapped in poverty, and they do not know how to get out. So, if we want to stop the violence in our communities, we need to help these young people. We need to give them opportunities. We need to give them a future. So I don't know what else can these communities do or say just to reach out and say that we need that we need a future. So the most obvious question would be is like, we need economic growth. We need more money to help these communities. To me, it's nonsensical when in South Africa there is people who are taking billions. You have, like I said in a previous video, this is the most unequal society where the minority are walking away with the majority of the wealth in South Africa, but we have communities that is starving young people that doesn't have a future. So if that is a situation, then the political system in South Africa is the one that we have to really give focus on, have to redress. And once we redress the political situation, and I don't mean politically in the sense is voting, I mean in the ideological type of project, thinking about the future of these young people, when this is not a poor country, is just a poor country if you are black in South Africa, then this is a poor country. But if you are if you are not black in South Africa, then you have much better opportunities, and you can escape these particular communities, and you have a better future. And that is at the root, at the heart of this of the situation. So Mr. Fokol, or aka President Cyril Ramaphosa, my appeal to you and your cabinet ministers is, since you don't fear anything, for one day, just let go of your security detail, and then you walk in communities like Delft, Langa, Soweto, Diepkloof, Galeshewe. Go to those communities and just walk through those communities without your security detail. Walk after dark and try and see if you are feeling safe. And I don't think that you know how it feels to live without any security detail since the negotiations early in the 1990s. Since then, you have been heavily guarded and protected by the police. So, of course, you don't fear anyone or anything because you're always surrounded by a security detail. So I appeal to you and your cabinet, please get out of your comfort zones, drop your security details, and go and walk in these communities. Go and see what is really happening. And then you will realize, when you are going back to those posh areas that you love, that in South Africa that you think you are living have two faces. One is very poor, which is the majority, and the one is very rich, which is the minority. So, Mr. Fokol, I hope that one day that you will think about this particular moment when you say this, and you would reflect on it, and you will recognize your arrogance, and know that you have been a privileged figure in South Africa since the early 1990s. So that is just my rant for this particular section. I felt quite offended for the president's response, and I think there's many people that would feel the same way who's trapped in those communities. So with that, I want to say thank you for watching and supporting another segment. I appreciate you. God bless, and until we see each other again. Bye-bye.